Welcome everybody today to Novatec All In. Every time we do one of these podcasts, we're going to have a special guest focusing on conveying, blending, and drying. We had a customer in recently, and that customer said this was the best day that they've ever had of getting information from the supplier. So this is our way of trying to make that happen virally for all of you out there.
Cheers.
Cheers.
That control is basically running the material distribution for their entire
100%.
factory, right?
If that goes down, their entire plant's down. They're down and they're bleeding hundreds of thousands of dollars and they can't get the parts. We're going to be overlaying a brand new platform while they're still operating.
You only do two things. You better do them damn well. Welcome to Novatec All In, and pleased to have the whole group here today. We got Tim Noggle right across from me. Tim, you have a guest with you today. Not
I
this
do. My
guest.
little,
A guest.
my club.
Your club. Okay.
I had a little accident the other night, and argument between me and my trash can going down my driveway, and it won. So I now am the proud owner of several stainless steel screws and plates. So I'm like Humpty Dumpty. They put me back together.
One day after surgery, I guess a little over 24 hours from
Exactly.
surgery, and Tim's here, and he'll certainly be part of our.
I love drying and conveying that much.
tasting
You can't
later
keep me
on.
down.
So, but welcome, Greg Washburn. I'm Conrad Bessemer, and today we want to welcome Don Wood.
Hello?
Don's
Good to be here.
head of our business development out in the Midwest area.
Yep.
Been with Novatec. How long?
Ooh,
Well, 2006 with
19 years,
little
20
bit of a
almost 20
A
years.
little bit of a
and then
hiatus,
for
sabbatical
2
there,
years.
so that's pretty good.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so
Been a while.
20 years.
Mhm.
Yeah. How
20
about that?
years. So, I mean, a lot of experience sitting around this table.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And one of the things I hopefully we can drill down a little bit today about was what we call control retrofits, which
Mhm.
really I've noticed lately we're quoting a lot of them. We've got a lot of orders in house. We have this one order with hundreds of replacement boxes scattered around.
Right.
But it sounds awfully intimidating to me. You're talking about control retrofit, and so what is a control retrofit, Don? I mean, what's this all about?
Well, historically, either some of our older control platforms or some of our competitors' control platforms have aged out.
And when we talk about controls like that,
Conveying control panels,
conveying
right?
controls.
It's
So this
it's
is
the
plant-
old PLCs.
plant-wide conveying controls.
Absolutely. For central systems, that are doing the heavy lifting of conveying, obviously, the multiple presses or multiple drying hoppers, multiple pumps, things like that. I mean, we've had products out for years, and they've come out and come to end of life. And you can't get parts for them, and
And this whole end of life thing is a whole lot different than say mechanical parts that seem to have a longer life to them.
Right.
It's like aging out of our cell phones.
Oh,
right?
yeah. I
Or
mean, how often do you
laptops,
replace a
right?
cell phone or a laptop
Right.
anymore? Yeah.
Right.
Right.
So we've got a lot of product out there right now that is, 12, 15 years plus years old out there, and they're seeing failures. And so, and with those failures, they need spare parts. They can't get parts. So a lot of the management has obviously then said, well, we need to replace this, right? With something latest. and
Because
greatest.
that control is basically running the material distribution for their entire
100%.
factory, right?
Right. If that goes down, their entire plant's down.
Well, and the problem is these aren't even parts from an engineering and operations standpoint. It's not like we can do anything about that. It's a PLC platform.
Right.
When the manufacturer moves on to new platforms, they will continue to support it for some period of time, and we usually try and buy a stockpile of things to support our customers. But at some point, it just becomes impossible for us to do that anymore, right?
We have that as part of our normal spare parts offering too, stuff that was 30 years old that we would have in, it could have been originally in some type of temperature controller or
Sure.
something that was antiquated to like a low level PLC. All those things eventually wind up getting a spare part retrofit kit that allows you to get into a current platform.
Yeah.
But we run into it all the time where, it's not as bad as what you would see in like commercial technology where it changes every 18 months or something like that. But it does change, within a decade where they'll support it for 4 or 5 years and they'll say, we're going to phase this out. And
Sure.
you might get a couple years out of that. And then you might be able to extend it, like you said, Tim, by hedging your bets a little bit, buying some parts out there and be able to support it for 10 or 12 years. And then you run into the situation that like Don's talking about.
Sure, and I think we try and give our customers a heads up when these things are coming. That hey, listen, we've done those things. We've hedged. We've leaned on the manufacturers as long as we can, but we're running out of ability to continue to do that, and so that they're not caught flat-footed
it's
and off
not,
guard.
and not just about our controls either.
No,
This
it's
is
absolutely.
an industry-wide
This is industry-wide.
situation.
Sure,
And I-
yeah. I mean, we're all commercial, tied to commercial platforms.
It's important to distinguish for our customers that we're not the ones that are forcing this.
Right.
This
Right,
is
of course.
our suppliers are creating end of life. The products are coming end of life, so we don't have a choice.
Right. Yep.
Thus, our end customers don't have a choice.
Sure. Sure.
I think one of the tricky things that winds up coming up though is like when I'm talking about like a retrofit kit on something small, this allows us to use as much hardware as existing
Right.
stay in place with
Right.
just maybe a new PLC or a new HMI, depending upon what has blown up.
Exactly.
right?
Yeah. You're not replacing, say, a whole dryer. You're just replacing the control that goes on
Just a
it.
control component.
This
to
is
it.
a little different, though,
So
right?
this
Yeah.
is different, right? Where now all of a sudden we're running into situations where it's an entire platform that
Yep.
they can't get parts for, or
Sure.
like somebody else has chosen not to support anymore. I'm sure we're running into that too, right, Don?
We
Yeah.
are. From a legacy standpoint for us, what we've been seeing the past 2+ years is some of the older PLC platforms we've been using. Allen Bradley DeviceNet is probably one of the biggest ones. So we had a large number of customer base that use those that we've been, as I mentioned, over the past couple of years, we're replacing out with our FX3, which Siemens-based platform.
Yeah, and I think that's the key thing as well, is that we try and be honest brokers about this and make sure that customers understand, and all the users do, that this is not us bad mouthing somebody else. I mean, we have the same problem that our competitors and our compatriots do. So it's not anybody's choosing of this. This is just the normal aging out of consumer electronics or of industrial electronics. I would love to think that I could use the same iPhone for a couple more years, but that's Apple's got other ideas or Samsung has other ideas, and it's the same thing with PLC manufacturers.
Yeah,
right?
it is. I think it is very much the same thing. Although we tried to stretch that out a little further. I mean, the FX3, which is our current highest level conveying control platform, is a Siemens product that's fairly new in its lifespan, so that it will have a good run for people. And we try to make sure that we have a definition from various manufacturers as to how far a run they're going to have
Sure.
and support that product.
Sure. I mean, the things we've been selling for the 20 years I've been here, this is the first real situation where we have a generational aging out. So these aren't, as you said, Conrad, these aren't short-lived things, but they are certainly measurable. And so I think, as you said, what people are buying now should get them through the next manufacturing generation, the next 10 or 15 years or even longer.
That's certainly the goal, unless something dramatic happens.
Sure.
And it's not consumer electronics. I mean, the iPhone, at least Apple would like us to think that's a fashion statement in terms of exchanging phones every year and so forth. And some people actually do that.
Well, Don uses those bejeweled cases, so that makes his more fashionable than everybody else's.
We don't want to go down that avenue.
But
Steal my mojo.
in the case of industrial, they usually want a fair lifespan to it.
Yep.
But there are technology advances going on. When we went from the FX2 to the FX3, for example, it did a lot to take the platform upward. It gave more capacities. We added features. We can do certain things with that that we couldn't do before. The screen definitions are better. There were a lot of, I would say, subtle differences, but even our FX2 is still supported.
I was going to say, and that's the good thing, is that's a platform that is probably Greg, 6 or 8 years old, maybe.
Yeah, probably about 7 or 8.
And still fully supportable.
Sure.
So we're not
No.
somebody shouldn't be washing those out at this point unless there's some growth reason why they just want something newer and maybe more flexible.
Right.
But I don't think there's a technological reason why something like
No.
that. It's generations are a bit older than that.
But when customers find that they're having a hard time getting the spare parts they need for that primary product,
Sure.
from an electronics point of view, and they're having to go to eBay and other sources,
Yeah.
then that's a giant warning flag in the air.
Sure, and especially because these systems we're talking about aren't supporting a machine.
Right.
Normally, they're supporting 10 or 12 or 15 or 30 machines in a plant, and so now you're just exponentially increasing that risk because of that.
The risk and the concern, and so I think what happens in a lot of cases is people are petrified of this. You're going to shut down my whole factory.
Sure.
How am I going to run material? So I guess that's the question I would ask, and because you've been through multiple
Yeah, absolutely.
of these at this point, and we have others going on right now. So first of all, I mean, how do you approach a customer and coax him through this process of the fact that you're going to have to tear apart this control system and that you're going to keep him up and running somehow?
Right. Well, the biggest thing is I was trying to subdue any fear. And the way we spin it is, essentially we're going to be overlaying a brand new platform while they're still operating. So our crews will come in and, set the new panels, pre-wire everything to junction boxes that we supply, and assure them that once that's in and debugged, it's operational, even though it's not operating. It doesn't have pumps tied to it yet. It doesn't have.
But it's
receivers tied to it.
communicating, it's doing all
And
those
it's
things.
doing its job. And then systematically, what we would do is we would essentially take the old system down by pump. So if one pump is doing nothing but loading drying hoppers, for instance, then that's the pump we're going to take down, switch to the new, and then everything along with that pump, receivers and whatnot, would be rolled over.
So you're doing that in managed phases?
We're doing that in his managed phases. And
All
it's
pre-wired and ready to
pre-wired.
go. Yeah.
A lot of it is plug and play. We've got these junction boxes that we supply that allow that, especially with the old DeviceNet type platforms where they use these M connectors. We can unplug the old and plug it into our new box, and it's really ready to go. So that simplifies things drastically.
Sure.
And it's important to let the customer know and set the expectations for that, because it takes longer than what they obviously expect.
Everything usually does, right?
It does, absolutely. And they don't ever want to shut things down, right? That's the big. We can't shut down? Well, there's always a little give and take. So you systematically will say, okay, what presses on this pump, for instance, that's online? What ones do you not need to run right now, right? And so we'll work around the schedules a lot. So yes, there's a lot involved, but it with enough pre-planning, which our project managers do a phenomenal job with, laying everything out, laying out timing, laying out expectations. Historically speaking, we've done a pretty good job and have not had any issues with the big switchovers.
Right. I know sometimes the switchovers are done on weekends. For example, I know one customer that you were engaged in.
Yeah.
We had people there.
Yeah, and that happens often. Again, and that's based on, hey, we can't afford to shut this plant down on the weekdays. We have a little bit of time over the weekends. Can you facilitate that? And the answer is yes. Of course, we can do that.
It's all about communicating those needs up front, though, right?
Up front,
And
set expectations up front. Holidays, we've done over holiday breaks too, right? I mean, nobody likes to do it, but we'll do it for our customers because that's the only time available. Or they'll have predetermined,
Scheduled shutdowns.
shutdown times and certain
Yep.
holiday
100%.
periods and things like that, where we'll take advantage of that.
So in most of these cases, when this whole idea comes up, are there customers approaching you on this, or is this something you have to let customers know that they're going to be under a threat of a problem?
A little of both, actually. Some customers that I know that have old platforms, whether it's ours or our competitors, I will let them know if I know. this is very old, you're probably having a hard time getting parts and supporting it, you might want to consider changing. Some other customers come to me because they've had a failure at a horrible time, over a holiday weekend or something, and they're down and they're bleeding hundreds of thousands of dollars and they can't get the parts.
So when they go down, I mean, they lose control of the pump, or they
Everything usually. We've had a few that the whole PLC has gone down and it's taken the plant offline, and tie that in holiday weekends or even weekends and getting parts, especially parts that aren't very easily available.
So having dealt with these customers, and if you're talking to our listeners right now, what advice would you give them, first of all, about just understanding what they have to do to start to vet vendors for this type of process?
Yeah, first thing I would absolutely talk to them and let them know is don't wait until something happens. Be aware of how old your platforms are and have a plan. Because it's usually, I've been seeing this, it's not until something drastically happens and they're out hundreds of thousands of dollars. So be aware of how old your equipment is. Bring up a plan.
So typically, 15 to 20 years old equipment, probably that's a warning flag.
Absolutely.
And this is for the material conveying systems, if they have a plant-wide system, what percentage of the market that you see in the Midwest would have
centralized system, 50% maybe?
Yeah, I'd say
That's fair. I mean, we have, in my world, in my area, there's a fair number of centralized conveying and drying systems.
Other folks might be by the press or
right.
Well, and sometimes these kinds of things get overlooked just because of resource constraint, and everybody's focused on trying to keep things running and make parts and bring in new platforms, new projects, and so forth. Is this? I would think they could reach out to us if we have to help them with that survey. We'll help them with that survey because it's in our best interest and theirs to try and help them figure out what their risk level is. Right.
So on that, right? If we get contacted, we'll go in, do a field on-site field visit. And kind of take a look at what they're doing, because many times the legacy system that's installed is not it's changed over the 12 to 15 years. They have more presses or more
changed
hoppers
because they've added things,
things,
moved,
so
whatever it is. Yeah,
most customers don't do a great job of recording those changes and documenting them, so we have to go in. We have to see what's going on.
You have to see where the wires actually run,
where they're at, how many pumps do you have now, how many receivers did presses leave, and things like that. So we'll do an overview.
And when you say we, I mean, is
usually it'll be something like myself and one of the local reps of ours. That will come in and help.
With big systems, I think we've even pulled in a project manager up front that we knew this was going to be a big job down the road, and so we wanted to make sure somebody's on top of it early.
It lends a good perspective to bring in our project managers for the sake of they have the vision of being able
the handover.
And I think one of the things too, just to add there from a vetting point of view, is although we call them project managers, they don't have an office other than in somebody's factory.
No, they're systems engineers. They're field engineers.
They're really site managers, so to speak. They're out there. They're there to supervise, not just supervise the job, but help you plan the job, right?
They absolutely. And in part of those packages that we put together for the customer for these control retrofits is the project manager will physically be on site a number of times throughout the installation process. So obviously we leverage them and their expertise in creating the drawings of how wires are going to be run, where junction boxes are going to be placed, things like that. And then of course we also leverage our mechanical and electrical contractors. So we have a number of them that we work with that are very good with electrical wiring of PLCs and low voltage control systems. So our project manager works hand in hand with factory, with Greg's group, the customer and our contractors, to kind of create that full package, to take some of the worry off the customer's shoulders.
So once a customer decides they're going to move forward with something like this, I mean, that's not the end of your job at that point, because you've got a role going forward as well in these kinds of projects, right?
Right. Right. Yeah. Well, I'm still intimately involved on the commercial side to make sure, obviously, that we're holding to budgets.
I mean, you always own it, so
Right.
to speak.
Exactly.
But just to go back, I mean, as in talking to to our customers and other folks as well here, that so in your mind, one of the things is to make sure someone's coming in and actually documenting what they have that has to be replaced.
Yes,
That's like
absolutely.
step number one.
Yeah,
Sure.
that has to happen before
Sure.
we can even put a number together for them. We need to know how many receivers, how many purge valves. We need to know if they've got manifold system with auto ID. We need to know how many pumps they're running. So once we get that base down of information, then I can kind of create the full blown proposal that would take into account, how many control expansion boxes or
Right.
remote panels we need or junction boxes, the whole gamut.
I think that's important too, because part of this is, the scope and the scale can really change here, because I mean, we have central control platforms that do a single pump in a handful of stations.
Sure.
And we have stuff that will do, a half a dozen pumps in 100 stations.
Yeah.
So scale is important, but it doesn't mean that the smaller one is any less important than the big one, because,
Right.
if you have like, 2 pumps and 10 stations going, that can kill you if those things go down, because it's really the heartbeat of what's running the plant.
Right.
But I think the big stuff that's been coming in, just to give a relative perspective, I mean, we went and booked 3 of these things. I think you were involved in most of them.
Yeah.
And those junction boxes that you're talking about, we went from having none committed to having over 500 committed in the course of like a week and a half. So I was like, holy smoke,
Yeah.
But that just tells you the scope, and that I think that comes back to that how you phase it in,
Right.
because we were doing bays at a time, and that was important for production
And
to
let's
supply it that
drill
way.
down on the bays at a time, because that phasing through a plant, I think, is important to understand for people as well. So talk about that a little bit.
Well, I'll use this one particular customer as an example, because they must have over 90 presses in their plant. And historically, they have 3 of our centralized conveying and drying systems within this plant. 2 of which were DeviceNet. One was actually our FX2 platform. So not only did they want to obviously upgrade to our latest and greatest FX3 to get rid of the DeviceNet platforms, but the FX2 needed to be upgraded so that it could all communicate on a common platform. So we did this in phases. So we took system 1 down systematically, as I just had mentioned, right? Pre-installed the system, debugged it, and then took everything offline by pump, rewired everything. And then brought that side of the plant up first. And then we actually waited, I would say a good month or 2, because we wanted to make sure it was operational and the customer fully understood how it operates, right? Because it's even though they all kind of do the same thing in terms of setting up fill times and purge times.
The look and feel's a little different.
Yeah, it's still
A
new.
little different feel, a little different way of driving down in the menus and selecting things. We wanted to make sure they were very comfortable operating it before we started phase 2, which was the other facility or the other side of the plant. So, and then the last phase was upgrading the FX2 platform.
So on each one of those phases, I mean, what sort of time span typically was involved?
Yeah, how much install time, how much changeover time?
And that can change, right, based on
But in
size.
that particular plant.
This particular plant, I would say our installers spent a good 4 weeks pre-installing the new one phase
and
platform.
were you replacing piping or?
No piping.
Okay.
Nope,
No.
just wire.
This
Right?
is all wiring, all rewiring everything.
So I think it's important too, because this was upgrading one of our own systems,
Correct.
which means all the control logic is the same. Whereas when we do competitor stuff, sometimes they flip stuff around, which means we'll have to do custom logic to be able to control their stuff, because we're not replacing hardware, we're only replacing controls.
Right.
Yep.
Right. And we've done a number of those as well with competitors' age systems where we've upgraded and replaced
Custom logic to
Custom logic.
accommodate
So
then. and
explain the custom.
Well,
logic.
some competitors' pumps, when they do, they'll reverse their pump in order to dump dust out. So we actually have logic in some of our PLC programs as a standard selection to do that. Other things would be maybe they're doing
Normally open valves versus normally closed valves,
Yep.
you know, is a very common thing that we see all the time, or that they just use a different standard control voltage. You know,
I was going to
that's
say
a big
control
one.
voltage change. Yeah,
that's
that's pretty
a-
common
that's
too.
always a
Big
big
one.
one too.
It's a lot of the older ones are 115 AC or 24 volt AC control platforms, and they want to get rid of that because of safety issues. So they'll go into and do a 24 volt DC. Which
So our
is what
contractor
standard
sometimes
is.
has to change out all the solenoids and change the physical pieces on the floor as well,
Exactly.
right?
So that takes more time,
Yep,
right,
yep.
to replace that.
But that's something like between yourself or the project manager or site manager that you folks have figured that out.
Yeah, you work through that with the
Yep.
customer, right?
We
Yep.
can provide the solenoids to do that, even though it may not be our equipment, if it's a competitor's equipment. So we know, we take that into account and provide that as part of the whole package. So we're trying to make this as easy as possible for our customers, right?
Sure.
And honestly, you know, lots of customers now don't have the manpower to do this on their own. So they want, as everybody loves to use the term, turnkey, right? And so we're doing that for them.
Sure.
And again, I think the biggest thing here is to really manage expectations and make them understand that things can go sideways, right? We have to debug, we have to work through things. So,
So
it's not
sideways
gonna-
typically because give me some
things
examples.
unknown. We may have, as good as our guys are, they may land a wire in a terminal strip somewhere wrong, and then it's not working properly, or it's not getting a signal, and so that just delays, you know, switching things over.
Right.
You know,
I
That's part of the
guess I
thing.
would guess since so many of our normal systems would involve piping and everything else, where you have mechanical contractors, now the contractors have to install these particular devices. Obviously, have to be more on the electrical side. So how do you qualify and vet that type of contractor versus somebody that's slinging pipe?
right. Well, I think historically, just how often we work with our contractors, as I mentioned,
We know what their
we have
strengths are, right?
contractors that are all over the United States that do, for the most part, exclusive work for us, and we know which ones are very strong in 24 volt control wiring and electrical installs. So those are the guys that we typically will leverage to do these control retrofits. So, because I don't want to put somebody in there that's untested, right? Because that's a gamble I'm not willing to take.
Sure.
For our sake, and then obviously for the customer's sake. So we're going to go with our group of contractors that have documented great response and the ability to do these controls. So, you know.
I think even within certain crews, though, there's guys that are great at wiring. Whereas
Absolutely.
You have, that's no different
Yeah.
than like crews that we have here. You know, we have a
Right.
group of guys that are great at wiring, and then guys that do mechanical.
Right.
To your
work.
point,
So-
I think retrofitting controls like this, as opposed to a fresh install, a little bit different set of skills,
Yep.
and a little bit different. You need a little bit different vision on how the steps need to proceed. And I think that's one of the things that I've been very impressed with is that the contractors that typically we would choose for this, and there are probably 2 or 3 of them.
Yeah.
They, in their own minds, then have a crew that they know. All right, when it's a retrofit, this crew is
Yeah.
the one
Yep.
that does it, not just any of the
And
crews. Yeah.
because we have such great and longstanding relationships with these contractors, we have the ability to say and dictate, this is the crew we need
Sure.
for this install.
Sure.
And they will accommodate our
Yep.
needs.
Yep.
So instead of sending anybody out that's been unproven.
No, I think it's unique because I think we've seen more of this control retrofit phenomenon in the last
Yeah.
2
Dramatically, yeah.
years,
Yeah.
where it's a major part of the business.
Yeah.
And so we have people that focus on that, not just the contractors we just talked about, but really, Greg, maybe you can talk about the group inside our
Sure.
control, what we call our controls group.
Well, that's the other thing that happens a lot is not only one of the big things that has happened now is the fact that you have outside connectivity, right? So our controls guys, historically would have had to go on and be part of that startup.
Yeah,
they
yeah.
would have been part of that crew going there. Now we can have a tech there and be able to, plug in a switch and be able to let our guys have access so they can help debug that system remotely. And that can happen day or night. And that makes it a lot easier to have 2 or 3 guys being able to work on it from their house on a Sunday afternoon. because that happened, particularly on the one that you're talking about.
Yeah,
Yeah,
we
yeah.
did.
We did plenty of weekend startups on that
Yeah.
where.
And you've
you know,
got guys in different time zones, so it really
yeah.
helps us to be flexible that way.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And, some of that actually wounds up being actually easier for those guys
Sure.
because they can pre-plan their week knowing
Sure.
that we have a Sunday startup, and they just have to be able to know, okay, well, make sure when you go on site, take a switch for this system and this system and this
Yep.
system, and I want to be able to look and talk to
Yep.
these different things. And
Yeah.
he can debug part of a system while our tech's going over and setting up the next part of it. So
Yeah.
it really helps to utilize the manpower a lot better, knowing with the latest technology and the way that you can dial in.
Well, and I appreciate the way we approach that, in that isn't a happenstance situation. On these control retrofits, we go into it, and your resources, your guys go into it expecting. That's a pre-planned part of our startup. It's not, well, if we get in trouble, we can call this engineer and he'll dial in. We pre-plan that. The engineer's going to dial in. He's going to help us look at it, because even if it's just to say everything looks good, that's a belt and suspenders, because you as well as anybody understand we can't have any hiccups in these kinds of changeovers. This is a live running plant that needs to keep going.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I think the other thing that's kind of unique in our instance is the fact that, we always start talking about how long we've all been here, but we have controls guys that have been here for 20 and 30 years.
Yep.
And not only like the contractors, some of those contractors that are retrofitting stuff put in some of the original systems.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
And and these engineers are the guys that put in the first system and have helped support it and have putting in the new ones.
Yeah.
So they're very intimately familiar with all of the working systems that are there and what they need to do to be able to get the new system up, because they're familiar with the old system. So that makes that process easier as well, just that longevity and the familiarity with the existing stuff as well as the new stuff.
Well, in control systems, that's one of the things I wanted you to talk a little bit about, Greg, is it used to be fairly simple. It was a PLC in a box with an HMI when PLCs first became the approach, and you wired back into that. Not necessarily the case anymore. There are lots and lots of boxes and components and sub boxes and remote I/O and all kinds of things. How do we make sure that all of those things, when it gets to the field, it's working?
All right, let's
Yeah.
hold up a minute. 'cause
Okay.
I'm getting a little dry.
Yeah. Oh,
And,
I like when you get dry.
You're on stage when we come back.
Yep.
All right. So we're going to take a quick break. And
Okay.
we'll get set up here.
Perfect.
And we're going to have, I think we're having a bourbon tasting
We're gonna
today.
taste a little rye whiskey today.
Rye
Right.
whiskey.
Yeah,
rye
Don
whiskey.
came all the way from Minnesota and had a request, and I couldn't break his heart by not granting his request.
Don, I expected to like rye versus beer.
Well, and Don
okay.
likes the finer things in life,
Well,
and
okay,
so
let it
we
be
have some good
told
stuff for him.
That I am an old-fashioned guy.
Yes, he
because
is.
I grew up in Wisconsin, and I'm a brandy old-fashioned guy, which is not really heard of around here. So I'm not. I just figure I'm going to drop that.
How do you spell that? Brand.
Brandy, B-R-A-N-D-Y. Brandy. It's in a fine female.
So folks, we'll be right back, and by the time we get back, we'll have it all set up. and,
Absolutely.
Hopefully you can, when you're not at work, you can drink with us.
Absolutely.
Thank you. Welcome back, and it's Novatec All In. We're back with Tim Noggle, and today a guest we have Don Wood, of course, Greg Washburn. I'm Conrad Bessemer. But we're back here somewhere near the midpoint, and we obviously poured some drinks here. And today,
Exactly.
Tim has bestowed us with a Whistle Pig, which is a nice rye.
Mm-hmm.
And it is Whistle Pig 15.
Right. So aged 15 years in new oak barrels. And what makes the 15 unique is it is aged in barrels that were made from oak that is on the Whistle Pig farm.
Okay.
So it's their own oak, their own barrels,
Nice.
and very nice. They have 6-year, 10-year, 12-year, the 15, and the 18. So
And-
Conrad and I have been fortunate enough to sample all of those years except the 15. This is new for both of us. So,
Nice.
and this would be an upper level rye, but also an upper level that is probably reachable for most people. This is about $199
The 15 is a
bottle.
great value point,
Yeah.
really.
Yeah, because the 18 gets pretty pricey.
18, like for 3 years. I mean,
Yeah.
for 3 more years, they're getting
Another
$500
$200-300.
yeah. It's like
An
yeah.
extra $300.
Oh, yeah.
yeah,
Yeah,
it's a stretch.
Yeah.
But I must say the 18.
It's a nice sip.
Once you go 18, you
It's a nice sip, exactly.
Sorry,
Exactly.
but this is usually pretty good stuff.
Yep. Cheers.
Cheers.
Oh,
Joe.
and cheers to my compatriot Greg Washburn. For those of you who do not know, Greg is a proud grandfather and about to become another proud
Two.
grandfather with number 2.
That's right.
So,
We'll find
Greg-
out boy or girl on Saturday.
Awesome.
Oh,
So
awesome.
happy for Lauren
Congrats.
and Mason.
And that's amazing for a guy who's only 30 years old. So,
I know. Oh, that's nice.
55. I just turned
Easy.
55 last week.
55.
Ah.
55.
55. I remember
Oh,
55
you youngster,
longingly.
you.
No, the youngster.
I think at 55, that's the number of years I have in this industry, but that's okay.
Exactly.
Anyway, welcome back. We're back with Don Wood, our business development VP out in the Midwest area. Don, I think you live in Minneapolis, right?
Well, I live in Cottage Grove, technically, which is a
Minneapolis
southern suburb of St. Paul. So I'm closer to
Oh.
the Wisconsin border than I
you are,
am
okay.
Minneapolis.
Welcome. And we're here in Baltimore today.
Yeah.
Of course, Greg, and don't usually talk about weather because we never know when you folks are going to
Sure.
read these things, but poor Greg got caught in a vicious snowstorm
Oh, yes.
this past weekend.
Yeah, the spring storm of
How
26.
many inches of snow down there?
14.
14?
Yeah.
So, Delaware, I live in Delaware, so we almost never get snow. There's like 3 plows in the state. So this season alone, we've had 2 12-inch snowfalls. So this was
Wow.
like 14. And
Got to get the
that
state
is-
to invest in some more John Deeres, right?
Yeah, it was.
And you lost power.
Yeah, we lost power for almost 2 days. So
Wow.
that was fun.
Greg missed work on Monday.
Yeah.
All right.
Did you even know what to do with
So-
yourself?
He didn't even break
I think
himself
this
to
is
do
like
it, though.
the first time in the 20 years that Greg has worked for at least
Yeah.
our reign that he actually missed a day.
Absolutely. Greg makes it over that bridge across the
it's
bay,
amazing.
no matter what
We
happens.
do give him vacation every now and then,
But unplanned is unusual. I mean,
Yes,
Unplanned is-
exactly.
I think I shoveled for 4 hours to be able to clear up that
we
day.
may have to
so.
put a plaque up for that, that particular day or something. But anyway, we're glad to have you back.
Yeah. Well,
Yep,
it was
absolutely.
all because I went to see Don earlier this winter.
Yeah, you did.
And
Ah,
That's right. You were up in that neck of the
that's
woods.
right. We
Yeah,
went,
yeah.
we went to check out some drying stuff, and
Yeah.
I went with Bruce, and we got off the plane, and it was a -5. And Don's like, "Don't worry, I'll be there in like 5 minutes." And I'm standing there like, "Okay, I think my nostrils are gonna freeze shut." And Don's like, "You okay?" I'm like, "Yeah, it's a different kind of cold here, man."
different kind of
It's a
cold.
dry cold.
Dry cold, yeah, sure. Okay. Well, anyway, let's get back to control retrofits, Don. And I think we actually
We're talking about
I-
testing systems
we
with
were
Greg,
worried
right? Yep.
because
Yeah, Greg was
I'm sorry.
Yep.
I was going to cut Don right in and cut you out. But we didn't finish with your conversation.
Well, we were
Tim
talk-
asked a question.
That's
and
right.
then
We were
you-
talking a little bit about expansions, right?
Right, and how we
So-
make sure this is all going to work together when it
That's
gets
right.
out there.
So, because part of that, I think that is a pretty important point of what we do is, one of the ways is we'll have a base controller that'll allow for, let's say, a 532. So 5 pumps, 32 stations. But we have expansion boxes then that can be located throughout the plant to allow an expansion of that so that you can do more stations or more sources or whatever it needs
Sure.
to be. And I think that has enabled us to be fully flexible within staying with a current platform. So I think you're kind of asking, like, how do we make sure it works? Obviously, it's no different than anything. I mean, I think that's the beauty of that distributed box concept is, one, it can be localized, and then tracing it back becomes a little bit easier as we're trying to, we can do a couple things. One is we can check it at the box, we can check it back at the main controller, and we can also put in, instead of having to put in a whole nother controller, we can just put in a remote HMI. So that also allows us to do a little bit of, depending upon the layout of the plant, to, access whether you're up on a mezzanine or, down around the corner, that's, is difficult to access, a lot of
Sure.
times. So I think we run into that a good bit, and I think you see that all the time. You quote the remote HMIs and the expansions all the time.
Oh, well, the expansion boxes for sure. And one of the big reasons is it helps our installers not have to run so much 24-volt cable.
Sure, they just
Which
pull
is
having
going
a home
to
run-
limit the price as
Right.
well. I mean, it's going to.
Exactly. So now they're just
Copper
wired
wire
to
isn't
the
cheap
remote
anymore.
or remote I/O box, so their cable lengths are shorter. You have a little bit more control, and then obviously that expansion box is just Ethernet wired or Profinet wired back to the main. It's plug and play, which is great, and it helps out, as I mentioned, the install side of it.
Sure. What was
and then-
overwhelming to me, and one of the reasons that prompted me to ask this was I came over here last week, and our studio is across from our main plant, across the street, and just outside of our studio, back behind me, looked like a maze of
Expansion boxes.
AT&T wiring, and it was there was I don't know how many systems were set up out here, but it was amazing. And
we were
our quality
testing-
manager was over here
testing
testing a
the
system
boxes.
for a retrofit that was being shipped out the end of last week.
That was
And he
system
was
number
actually
2
running
of
the
2.
whole system here before he even put it in boxes, right?
That's right.
Yeah.
Right. So we hook the whole thing up, connect all the boxes. That was a unique system for a couple of extra features that they wanted.
Sure.
So we tested that. The nice part about that one was that you saw was an identical system. So they're doing 2 different sections of a plant.
Sure.
Doing the same setup, which is great. When you have a customer that's doing the same thing a couple of times, because obviously it limits our engineering and our exposure.
Sure.
Obviously. And then we'll run into the same thing with install too. Is you'll install it a second time, it makes it that much easier.
Right. Yeah. I'll touch back to what you were asking about the remote HMIs and implants. One of the nice things with these newer platforms is we have the ability to put in multiple remote HMIs depending on where the
And
customer.
when we say a remote HMI, so it's just a remote.
All it
visual.
is, I hate to say it's a dumb panel, but really all it is
the remote
just,
screen,
it's
right?
just a
Yeah.
screen
Remote
where they
screen.
have full access to operate the system from that.
So it means they don't
location.
have to go way back to wherever the main panel
Correct.
happens to be.
Correct.
So they can have these remote boxes with screens scattered around the plant. Just
Absolutely.
as imagine, I guess like your home, if you wanted to set up a home network and you want to have different visuals in different rooms, so you can set your burglar alarm upstairs rather than just downstairs and have to go up and down.
Correct.
So it's the same way, but plants are huge sometimes. So these remote boxes are
They really come in handy.
Yeah, and what's beautiful is that they augment the ability to connect to the main panel with an iPhone or with a tablet or something
Well,
else.
yes.
So you have lots of portals into the system.
which usually are things that they didn't have that option to do
Not
with
on
the
the old-
old
on the system we're
Correct.
the old
replacing,
system
right?
they're replacing,
Exactly.
which gives them. It isn't just a matter of replacing something for the sake of replacing something. You're getting some.
You're
some
gaining
added
functionality,
benefits.
yeah.
So,
Yeah,
So maybe you
and-
can clue us in on the added
Yeah,
benefits.
so generally, I always bring up to the customer the ability to do remote control, whether it's our physical remote HMI panel located, or because these new platforms are IP address based, they can, as Tim mentioned, can operate this off of an iPad, a phone, or a remote laptop. If they have an implant on wireless network, or we can create our own wireless network.
Yeah, our
because
techs normally do that when they're doing
they
setup,
absolutely
right?
do. So it's interesting because I have a lot of customers that light up when they hear that they can operate on an iPad, right? Because they already have them, and they think that's great. Some don't like that because they're afraid that if they invest in an iPad, it'll walk away from the plant.
Sure.
Right. So they want something fixed to the wall. So it's almost, from what I've been seeing, a 50-50 between which customers decide whether they want our HMI
Portability
or
yeah.
not. So
Well, the portability, sometimes some people are afraid of security issues and things like that.
Sure.
Yep.
In terms of porting into the system. So
Oh,
and
certainly for that.
Some
right.
people
Yeah.
keep it within plant. Obviously, I guess the other thing, most of these systems now, not most of them, but all of them, some of them can port into a SCADA system that
Sure.
the customer may have
Yep.
Sure.
for whatever implant.
Well, you
Yeah,
can even gateway in from your home computer, through
Right.
a portal and
Yeah.
through the internet,
And,
if you so desire
As
to do
Greg
that.
mentioned, our techs have done that. And,
Yeah.
and our customers certainly see the benefit of that, and usually what the Achilles heel is, their plant IT department doesn't allow them to get through. the
Yeah, and
ladder.
understandable. I mean, there's so much security concern anymore.
Yeah, and that's all understandable. So
Yep.
it's up to them to put the
Yep.
firewalls in and try
Exactly.
to.
But that's where you
avoid-
see the remote HMI being beneficial because it's inside the plant.
Yeah.
It's not a big
Absolutely.
deal.
Yeah,
Yep.
it's
The
within-
other thing is just over the course of time, how far these really have gone. You know, when you think about when they first came out, you could have a remote and, you know, you kind of had a master and then you had a remote, and that remote could only, you know, see stuff.
Right.
Now that remote can actually come back and take over.
Yep.
And now this latest generation that we're working on, you can have two users both accessing and both changing stuff at the same time.
Yes.
That's really slick.
It's crazy, yeah.
Because when you think about, you know, people changing stuff at the same time, and then
coordination
syncing that
happening,
up, it's really impressive. So
Yeah,
the latest generation of what we're doing there actually has that capability.
Yeah, that's huge. And the other one that we're seeing a question being asked a lot is everybody wants data, right? They want to know how things are performing. They want to know how their dryer is drying. They want to know, you know, how much material is being sent to a certain area. And so they're always asking, can we grab that data?
Right.
And the answer is yes, absolutely. We can provide you all these data points.
So what
that they
percentage of
can
your
detect
customers do you find, I mean, of that 50% that are in central systems, what percent do you think seem to be getting to that data?
It's growing. I would say right now it's probably lower than what you would think. It's probably maybe 15, maybe 20% of those
But
customers
many of
are
the-
at that point. Because
The bigger, more progressive
Absolutely.
customers.
Absolutely.
So just drill down again on what they're actually looking at and why they're looking at it and what advantages they think it provides. To
well, ultimately, it's proof that their end product, whatever they're molding or making, is a viable, good product, right? So they want to be able to have the data to prove that. They want to be able to ensure that, you know, if it was a dried resin, it saw its time and its temperature. They want to know that it was specifically conveyed from hopper 1 to press 6 and 7. And so they want all that data so that they can go back, specifically medical device companies where FDA has their paws and everything. They need this proof, right? And so now with the technology that allows them to get access to that, they're asking for it. So, and thankfully, we can deliver that.
Well, I think we're more and more developing products and add-ons to products that will allow even more of that data transmission and capture, because we understand that. We understand that you want to automate those requirements because they're important. Automotive and medical and all those end industries are putting a lot of requirements on our molding partners that the easier we can make it for them, the better.
Yeah.
Right. I think also, for example, the FX3 enhances what our new Infinity pumps can do.
Sure.
Yeah. Yeah.
Which is an added plus in terms of I think some additional speed control issues on conveying and things like that. But,
Yeah, absolutely. Capabilities that didn't exist on the existing platforms that
so
we're
there are a lot
replacing.
of
Yeah.
advantages to obviously upgrade, and I think the whole messaging we're trying to provide here is that this is something we take on every day.
Yeah.
We don't just upgrade our own. We upgrade out.
You name it.
You name it. Different packages out there. We replaced various people's. We won't name the guilty, but obviously there are lots of platforms out there. Some of those companies are strong at this point. Some of them aren't, and some of them you would never buy another platform from them because they've faded in their support, and
Sure.
you value them and associate it. But you know, here we focus on that. You know, I think once again, with Novatec, what do? We do two things. So when you only do two things, you better do them damn well.
And you better embrace all of the opportunities in those
You know,
things.
we don't make granulators, and we don't make mold temps, and we don't make central chillers.
God bless those who do, but not our thing.
The interesting thing is that I don't, you know, you do all that stuff, but you're a master of none.
Sure.
Okay?
Yeah, we want to be
Okay?
the
They
experts
make
in what
some
we
good
do.
products, but we stress on control retrofits. We stress on controls. because controls go on every conveying system we do. And
Absolutely.
controls go on every dryer we do,
Yep.
and every central drying system we do. It's an integral part of our business. We have as many controls engineers as we have mechanical engineers.
Absolutely.
Maybe more right now, okay?
It's pretty close.
It's pretty close. I mean, Greg's a mechanical engineer, so he tries to keep it on the mechanical side. But Greg, let's talk a little bit about that. Let's circle back to that controls group again, because the head of that group, Fred Eichhorn, who's been at Novatec
Since 1992, 34 years.
92, 34 years.
Yep.
Wow.
So and
He started out with relay controls, I'm guessing.
Yeah, I mean, when I first started, we were finishing up. We really didn't get into we had a Greenborn backer.
Sure.
Our main controller was a 216, 2 pumps, 16 stations.
Okay.
Had a graphic overlay that you could press the buttons and they would light up and all that good stuff. And Fred certainly was highly involved in those. And, when the first PLCs came out, pretty much he's been involved in that since day one. So everything that we do, really flows through Fred in some ilk, and certainly Fred is unique in the fact that he's a great mechanical engineer as well as an electrical engineer.
he understands the airflows, and he understands. I mean, he, in the 34 years he's been here, he's gotten into that, and he's very good from sort of mechanical and electrical side. But I think also when you're trying to lead a company, you need people that are visionary in their different areas. So Fred is visionary in the control side of this. He's looking off the bow of the ship. Sometimes it drives me crazy, but he's always he's looking at what's going to happen out there, which is absolutely critical in that control sphere, because things are changing so rapidly, and you have to evaluate all this and what can we do to keep up. And people oftentimes, because they're so used to controls every day with their cell phones holding it out in front of them, or their iPads or anything else, they have the same expectations of screen responsiveness and memory responsiveness with our type of devices that they have out of those commercial devices.
Absolutely.
And none of us have any patience, So you have to build stuff such that anybody can tap that button and you have instant response. And if you don't have instant response, they're going to pound away. And by the time control figures out, it's 5 instructions onward, and things are shutting down.
Yeah, we're finding out it needs to be easy for the operator.
It needs to be very easy.
And unfortunately, with a lot of the changes over the course of the last 10 plus years in the people that are operating our equipment, the material handlers, essentially has gone from a technical position to a turnstile type position, right? So there's not a lot of guys that are very technical running these, unfortunately, and that's just everywhere in this country with those positions. So we have to make it simple for them to run, and we can do that, right? With even the newest platforms, we have password protections, right, to protect from making mistakes. We have the ability of turning icons off or hiding them.
Well, I was going to say, fortunately, all this is graphical, so it's familiar.
It is.
Right?
So we don't, for those the lower level operators, we don't want to confuse them. So in a lot of instances, we'll hide things so that they can't mistakenly push a button. Because we all know those third shift guys, they like to push buttons.
Supervisory people can get in and so forth, and password protection, and we have all. But the graphical, this is what we do. We focus on that, and so. And like everything else, even when we move generations, we try not to change too much of that graphical interface, because people get used to using a certain type of control and where buttons are and things like that as we move from generation to generation. But
well, you're saying generation, and that's one of the things I was going to say. The great thing about having a guy like Fred, who's been involved in conveying and drying control platforms for so many years, is in this era where we are really focused on retrofitting a lot of stuff that's been around for a long time, he's an invaluable resource, not just from a Novatec historical control platform standpoint. He knows what the industry has done for many years. And so when Don or Ricky or Dennis or Alex or any of these guys who are out in the field come upon a customer that has an aging control system, they have the ability to call Fred, to call resources like him, like yourself, who have been through those generations. Say, all right, I've got this from 1997, and it's from XYZ company, one of either us or one of our competitors. What am I starting with here? What technology am I starting with? What can it do so I know what I'm trying to replace? And it's a great historical perspective to keep us honest and keep us accurate on what we're trying to do with the current technology and retrofitting those things so we don't make mistakes.
And Fred is an encyclopedia of all that stuff and then some. Like, he will have this amazing...
As a friend once said, he's a tremendous wealth of useless information, right?
Well,
his information's not useless, though.
Yeah, but he does. He knows the industry. He knows what people have done.
Absolutely.
He knows the generations of what we've done and what
Right,
they've done.
right.
Invariably he'll be like, we did something to try to, replace that once, and then he'll go into his office and there's a stack of stuff, and then he'll pull something out and say, here it is. And amazingly, we have. I mean, we've dealt with most things over the years. One of the great things and one of the toughest things is, guys like Don will call us and say, this is what's going on. Can we? And then invariably we'll say, we can, but it's going to require this, this, and this.
Yeah.
And
That's usually the part I don't listen to.
No,
It's a big sigh, yeah.
no, because I mean, in a lot of this stuff,
Yeah,
let's face it, with our customers, sometimes we like to think there's going to be a cookie cutter way of doing certain things.
Sure.
But these plants are all different.
Absolutely.
How many bays they have, what
And
their
they've
layout
evolved over
is.
time, so
Right.
it's,
And it's okay. We welcome those.
Yeah.
I mean, they're customers. They're long-term customers, just as we have long-term employees, and that's what we do for a business. That is Novatec.
we marry knowledge to needs.
Exactly.
Yep.
Exactly.
Yeah,
Yep.
and being in this industry as long as we have, I'm amazed that they're, I'll go into a customer and I'm always learning something, or somebody's doing something that I've never seen before in terms of controls. and
Sure.
What they're asking, and I'm like, whoa, okay, that's interesting.
And,
So
and most of our product additions come from customers.
yeah,
Right.
The
absolutely.
expansion packs are because of customers.
Yeah.
Sure.
Remote HMIs are because of customers.
Yeah, yeah.
We do listen.
We
do
thrive
listen.
on that, and so the last thing I want to do is turn those things down.
Yeah.
I mean, they're important for the growth of Novatec, but they're important for the growth of our customers
Agree.
and this industry of bringing it up, especially as we all labor with having problems getting qualified employees to run our plants.
We have very smart customers. I mean, to the extent that I would say a majority of the improvements that we do with our controls are a customer request that we say, this is
agree.
good enough, we should just put it in the standard.
Right.
Yeah.
And we'll just upgrade the standard program.
Somebody
to
else is going to
reflect-
need this. This
Right,
is a great
exactly.
idea, yeah.
Everybody should do this. This
Yep.
this is brilliant. You should just do
Agree.
this automatically.
And-
So we
and
do that all the time because
Bit
we
by
have
bit,
really
we
good
tell
customers.
people like Don what we've done.
Every once in a while, we have to have Don come to Baltimore, so we tell him all the stuff that we've done.
Yeah, exactly.
But anyway, guys, we are running out of time
Yep.
here.
Yeah.
And it's been a great conversation. This is what we do. We, like I say, we
Absolutely.
sit down, and Tim helps us a little bit now and then. Sometimes Greg brings it in, sometimes
Exactly.
I do. We share a little drink, which helps the second part of the conversation go a little faster.
You notice how much looser the second part of the conversation usually is? Yeah.
Especially with Tim, because that cast was starting to hurt a little
Yeah,
bit.
right.
Oxycodone and
but
bourbon
it
are
was
really
a
good.
Great conversation, and Don, this is your first time doing this with us. but,
Yeah, thanks for having me.
we
This was great.
appreciate you as part of the team.
Absolutely.
You are one of the best, and we appreciate all you do, and we look forward to seeing our viewers next time.
Absolutely.
Thank you very much.
Thanks,
Thank you.
everybody.
Thank you.